Whether you found this video because you were referred to the Oracle or you just stumbled on me on social media somewhere, what we're going to do today is I'm going to show you the basics on what a human design chart is and how to read yours. In order to do this, you need your human design chart. So what you're going to do is if you go and look at the description down below, I'm going to have a link that's going to bring you to my site and it'll show you this exact chart so that you can follow along super closely. The form that you fill out is this one right here as well. This is the real down and dirty version, okay? So we're going to go over 3 different elements of your human design chart. And these are the 3 that if you only learn these 3 things, you're good. You can use this to change your life as much as you want. All you have to do is keep following these 3 things, and your life will keep unfolding and changing and growing into the direction of alignment. In order to get this, we talked about where to go get your chart. All you have to do is look right next to the body graph here, this funky shape with all the numbers next to it, and you're going to see this text. The types, we're looking at type, strategy, and authority today. So go ahead and locate those and find yours before we move on to talk about the different things. So your energy type is akin to your aura. It's this torus field around your body, and there are 5 major energy types. Now we're going to go over each one and just do a little bit of a dive, but on my YouTube page, there are deeper dives onto each on an individual level. Now, what is the difference between them, right? Well, each of us has a role here. And because of that, our auras move differently. They expand differently, they're shaped differently, and they have different sort of special powers, right? Different gifts. Now, I use different language, just a heads up, than the standard human design language. And it's because as I have worked with individuals over time, I've worked with tons of them, like hundreds and hundreds, maybe even thousands, right? And I have learned how to speak in a way that other people can apply and have the biggest impact on their lives. And so I choose to use the most empowering language I possibly can. And so you're going to see that if you Google this, it's going to be a bit different. That's okay. Just wanted to give you a preface. That's why. All right. And after that, we'll dive into a little bit more detail there. So let's go. We're starting off hot with generator auras. If you're a manifesting generator, this will apply to you. However, you'll see when we get to a manifesting generator aura, it's a hybrid type. So it dominantly is the generator type, but there'll be a little bit more to go on after. All right. So y'all have consuming and nourishing aura. That is because your aura is just this big, I'm a generator. Our aura is just this big, exciting ball of energy that sucks people into it. And so we can either consume them and then they nourish us, right? Because we feed them with our extra energy. That's because we have an active sacral center. Generator types are the only ones that have an active sacral that we make the energy that everybody runs on, right? We're the ones that create it. We make so much that we have excess and we leak it out to others. That's how we nourish other people. However, since we do have so much energy, we consume it from others as well if we're not in alignment, especially. Now, even if we are in alignment, we can be so stoked and zealous that we're consuming it, but we're also sharing it at the same time. So it gets a little, you can just tell the difference. One feels good, one feels horrible. If you are a generator and you're out of alignment, you can tell because you're tired. And I don't mean necessarily physically tired, I mean on a soul level. If you can't seem to muster up the energy to live your life when you make your own, unless you have another indicator in your chart saying that there is a circuitry thing you should be aware of, but that's a little bit deeper of a dive here. Generally speaking, it's because you are just bleeding energy and you're not in alignment. How do we tell if we're in alignment? Well, each type has this signature vibe, right? When you feel satisfied, like you finish something or you're doing something and it just feels so deeply satisfying and delicious, that feeling is how you know you're headed in the right direction. When you get frustrated by what you're doing, it is a sign that you went in the wrong direction at some point and to pivot and backstep and figure out where you maybe went wrong, put down what you're doing, and come back to it later and just get your energy in check. Okay. The strategy and authority types right there. We will get into that down the road in just a little bit after we go through these aura types. But just take note if you're a generator, there are two authority types available. So 50-50. 70% of people are some type of generator, and about half of that is pure generator like this. Manifestor aura. Manifestors are, you'll find that you tend to attract, if you pay attention, there's a pattern to who you attract, right? And that's because you have certain needs in your life and the universe is providing the resources. I attract a ton of manifestors. I love manifestors, okay? And it's because they crack me up, all right? They're not for everybody. That's for sure. They only make up 7 to 9%, depending. There is some talk in the human design community that it's been predicted that right now there has been more manifestors, just like up to like maybe 12%, because again, that's what we need at this time. Now, what makes manifestors, right? First off, their aura is dense and protected. Essentially, so if you ever see someone, especially if it's a manifestor in alignment, they are leaning in and zealous and having conversation, and then they pull back. Stone Cold Steve Austin. And it looks like they're mad and they hate you, right? It looks like they look like it's just like RBF more than I've ever seen in anybody in my life. I even have one friend who will just turn off when we're in a video, when we're like in a mastermind or an event or something. When he's not interested, he just turns his video off. And then you can tell when he gets interested because he'll pop it back on and we'll be like, oh, he's invested in something. And this is because y'all are here to pull something completely new out of the crack of the space-time continuum here. Just something completely new from one reality to the next. And because of that energy, y'all can't have everybody's opinions up in your bubble here. You have to be really discerning and selective, and your aura is designed to help you with that. So you can literally, like when they lean back, that's them closing their aura. And when they lean forward, yeah, their aura softens a bit so you can be part of it, but they're still not absorbing you, right? They're not meant to be easily conditioned. Now, if a manifestor is somehow conditioned, I have met like one or two, and it is a unwinding process. If you are a manifestor who has to decondition because you don't have that feeling, like I've talked to manifestors, they genuinely feel the like, I've asked them and they'll be like, oh, I know I do that. Yeah, people will be like, are you okay? Like, did I say something wrong? And they're like, no, I can feel my aura close them out as I'm going into my space to think and to contemplate and to reflect and to process, right? And even to listen actively. And so, which can be counterintuitive seeming, right? Which is why knowing somebody's energy type can be so powerful, because a lot of people will take offense to this behavior, as well as when we get into the strategy, I'll tell you a little bit about that. A lot of people can be really sensitive to the way that a manifestor acts because they have so much authority in them, or they just like don't give a shit about you. They do if you're one of their people, but it's not going to be represented the same way as the other types, right? So alignment here is peace. Chill, just at peace, centered, balanced. Misalignment is anger, like wrath and rage, and it often comes on very suddenly. And it can be, because of the power of a manifestor, it can be hard to unwind. Now, they don't have an active sacral, so thankfully it's not fueled by that, like the most active motor center potential here. They're not making their own energy. But if it's with a generator, it can really burn off of their energy as well. But back to being out of alignment, or conditioned. When a manifestor is somehow conditioned, it often happens aggressively in early childhood. Okay. And then it's an unwinding process. And I really recommend, whether it's me or somebody else, working with somebody who knows how to help you unwind that deconditioning, because it is so rare and intense. But you can be equally powerful on the other side of that once you navigate that. And it all goes back to allowing yourself to close your aura. Okay. People don't have a right to your aura. And it's really about manifestors having chosen to force themselves to keep their aura open all the time. And it lets down their guard. That is there by design. Now, we went over the generator type and the manifestor type because now we're doing the manifesting generator type. And while you can see it's almost exactly like the generator type, it is a hybrid type. The generator is your dominant, if you're manifesting generator, the generator is your dominant type, okay? But you do have the added benefit of the manifestor in there. Now, how much of that you have depends on your channels in your chart and the way that your circuitry moves. There's a channel, if you see in your report that it says that you have the channel of charisma, you're going to have an easier time with the manifestation. Like, you're going to want to look at the manifestation piece a little bit more. Okay. The manifestor piece. Now, we can all manifest, just to be clear, but it's how we manifest. And that's strategy. And we'll get to that again in a minute. So again, it's consuming and nourishing, all of the same stuff as before, except for the strategy. Like I said, we'll get to that in a minute. Now, what else do you need to know if you're manifesting generator? What else is the basics here? Okay. You are going to have to navigate and balance and master both of these energies and then blend them. It is the type that I see that is out of alignment the most frequently. Generator types themselves, Ross said, the original channel of human design, who, by the way, exactly who we needed to do it at the time, but just so you know, everything that he said was, a lot of it was coming from a shadow and fear frequency. Okay. And a lot of other human design people are very like by the book and they will disagree with me, but I digress. So, one thing that he was definitely right on though is that generator types are the ones that we go 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 go. Our sacral charges us, and so we get these blinders. Manifesting generators in particular, right? Because life tends to be, they like to have multiple things going on at once, and they tend to be generating and creating so much at once that they can't even, like, they're not even looking up enough to be self-aware. And so they tend to be out of alignment the most and have a really hard time getting in alignment. Those that are in alignment are very, very powerful, okay? Because you do have both types you can access. So if you are a manifesting generator type and you want to get into alignment, I cannot recommend enough a couple things. Finding a regular breath work practice or meditation that involves like a dynamic meditation, like breath work. Working with somebody to help you with reflection and slowing down enough to be self-aware. Also, remembering you are supposed to be doing multiple things. You are the multitasker of the aura types. So when people say you should slow down and do one thing, ignore them. Projectors are the newest aura type. They came around the same time that Uranus in the late 1700s was discovered. So in a way, in my understanding, they're sort of a Uranian type of being, right? And the age of Aquarius, they were being trained for the age of Aquarius. Now is their time to shine. All right. And that is because before this, generators, it's always been a generator world, but generators, we are at a point in consciousness where generators need more guidance. Otherwise, like, they're not just fighting off saber-toothed tigers, right? Guidance needs to happen so that we can generate in a direction that's fruitful. And that's where projectors come in. Projectors are oftentimes easier to guide with human design, to be completely honest, because they have less fight about it. They are less stuck in their ways and stubborn. And they're much more adaptable. And that's because what they do is is when they go, the way that their aura engages with yours is you see that point there, right? It goes right into your aura. Okay. And you'll find out there's an upside and a downside, because I'm sure you're thinking like, ugh, that feels non-consensual, right? There's an upside and a downside, and there's a way to navigate. That's what the strategy is all about, right? Success is alignment. When you feel success as a projector, you're in alignment. When you feel bitterness, that's how you know you're misaligned and out of alignment. Now, a projector is naturally curious and absorbing, right? So as they're going into your aura, it's because they want to look and understand you so they can guide you. By design, that's what they're here to do. And so oftentimes they tend to really enjoy and thrive in teaching positions, right? And again, we'll get deeper into that in the strategy. And the absorbing is because they're really extracting information and they're distilling it. And while we see projection as a bad thing, so again, I've said this before, the names that are chosen are not what I would choose, because there's negative connotation with the term projecting. That's not what's happening here. What they're really doing is they're not quite reflecting either. What they're really doing is they're providing a feedback loop to you with guidance added in, right? It is the true guidance that we really need. And because of this, to make more guidance types available and really poke it with a stick energy here a bit, authority types, there's a bunch of different types, right? And because we need different sorts of guidance and activation through different authority processes. Reflectors are the rarest type. Only 1% or even less of people are reflectors. And that is because, so a projector is sort of a personal reflector, right? But a reflector is society, the whole collective's mirror, right? It's reflecting back to all of society where we're at. So if you are a reflector, it is crucial that you surround yourself with people who are where you would like to be and be going. And take plenty of time, regardless, for self-reflection. Because you are, unlike a manifestor that's like not at all conditionable, reflectors are highly conditionable, right? If you notice the aura here, it's like floaty. It's not even like a full shape. It's because what it does is it brushes up against other people's auras, and it's like I think of it like a lemon zester, right? Because like a projector wants to dive deep and really understand an individual. A reflector wants to take little samples of and zest all the lemons so that they can properly reflect back to society what's going on. And that's why you're going to see a reflector who's reflecting without intention is reflecting the collective frequency. And that can be a really, for lack of better words, toxic thing to be around or to be, right? So that's why it's extra crucial, and it's not for the faint of heart. They are very strong individuals. Okay. Now we're going to get into how the moon works into this, because it's also a very patient experience. It requires a lot of patience. Now, being aligned here is all about being surprised, which is such an interesting thing. That language is not my language. I'm still working on that one. But it's really about being like pleasantly surprised, this is better than I thought it would. That you have the high expectation, so your expectations are reasonable, but it exceeds it, right? So it's that whole, in business, I hear all the time, from my very aligned network to tell people, show them a reasonable thing under promise and over deliver. That's alignment for projector. When it feels like something when you've over delivered and are pleasantly surprised. Misalignment is like over delivering, or misalignment is like over promising and under delivering. So just to give you a little perspective on that. So, your strategy is the way that you interact with the world around you. And what this means is when opportunities come to you, depending on what your energy type is that we just went over, um, you're going to need to either respond or make decisions based on this experience, right? When experiences come to us, what do we do with them? That's your strategy. And what ones matter more than others? Based on your strategy, you'll find out. So make sure you check your strategy. We'll dive in, and I'll mention what energy types along the way too. So don't worry about that. Generators and manifesting generators have the same core foundational strategy. Now, a manifesting generator has an extension type that we'll talk about in a little bit in a different part of the video when we talk about the manifesting side, right? So the strategy here is wait to respond to what you attract. So you're attracting things and manifesting things to you, and then it's staying the course, right? And then it'll come to you. And so that's really what this is about. Now, the language here is wait. It's actually a little more empowering because it's a receptive energy. And that's because generators and generators are such a yang doing energy that in order for them to attract in order for you to attract it, you need to wait for it to come to you. So that balances it out and yang yin and yangs it up, right? So that really is how to enforce with the universe, right? I am patient for big things to come my way. All right, so this is the one where manifesting generators have this as a secondary function, right? So manifesting generators need to wait to respond to what they attract as their initial main function and their main strategy in the world. However, they also have to keep on a subtle level for that. Remember that they also have to apply informing before initiating. Now, manifestors exclusively do this. And the reason for that is because this garners the support that you need to bring it into form. Because here you are able to take this concept and bring it in so that the energy is here to build it. Your job is not to build it with the manifesting energy. A manifesting generator might be able to build it, but they also want to bring in as big of concepts as a manifestor would. So this is why it's important, and also to make sure that the generators helping bring it into fruition have the right guidance so that they continue in the right trajectory. Because a generator type, if they're not informed and they're not guided, it takes the whole team. The generator type just goes very just zoomed in, right? Laser focused, building, 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 creating, creating, creating out of the raw concept material that the manifestor pulls in. So as you can see, it would be really hard without the proper support for a lot of different ideas, unless it's just a concept that is an ideology in itself. But if there's any building and creating any sort of scale, right? Eh, or maybe you're using like something like that. That's cool too. But the point is that you need to make sure that the assets you have, whether they're social resources or tools, that you have them when you need them, or it's gonna be a lot harder for you to really get things in gear. Now, when you're informing, you don't need their feedback. You're not looking for advice. We already know this. If you're not informing as a manifestor, it's probably because you don't want the advice and you're sick of having to deal with that, right? Like, "Oh, hey, I wasn't asking for permission." That's cool, right? Here are some people do it through like asynchronous ways, right? I know a manifestor in particular that's really good at that. And so basically, it's about coming up with strategies that you can inform people and language that you can use so that they don't have the invitation to challenge it or to give their feedback or advice, right? You're the initiator. You're not meant to be conditioned during these choices, right? And you'll find too that the more you attract the right people around you, the less they're going to give you pushback. The manifestors in my life, when we do a project together, they're leading it, they're spearheading it. And I'm just there for the ride. It can be really easy for projectors in human design to see what they're doing as passive. But what they're doing is so pivotal by design for the way that human consciousness, the trajectory of it all, we really have projectors to thank for that. And that's because of the patience it requires and the guidance that it requires and the selflessness that it requires. So, waiting for recognition or direct invitation isn't about passivity here, it's about patience. And it's actually a gift because it's a filter. So, if you're offering advice to somebody that doesn't want it and hasn't given you recognition or an invitation, they're going to react horribly. They're going to really like lash out at you. That can be that's typically super triggering for people, and at the bare minimum it's going to give them a major ick factor. So instead, learning to recognize the subtle ways that people can invite you or give you recognition, and then coming up with ways to uh, alternative ways to show what you do off so that people can find you and then give you recognition or invite you is really the name to the game here, right? It's a very subtle art. Reflectors are that rare type again. So if you're a reflector, you're going to find that you attract a lot of things to you and you're able to really share other people's energy and leverage it. Sometimes it can be really hard to do so in a productive fashion. And it's a skill. And this is why it's important to spend a lot of time stepping back, waiting it out to see, okay, which parts of these things that I borrowed at these different moments actually serve my bigger goals here. All right. And then you can assess and you're going to start attracting more of the right energies to help you go towards your goal and in the direction that you want to go in. But you really have to slow down first. Like it's crucial to slow down to make sure that you're only keeping what you need and you are releasing the rest. And that's why you have to wait a whole lunar cycle. After you followed your strategy and you've started attracting the things to you, now you need to be able to know what the right decision is, because at the beginning you might be attracting things to you that serve you at that moment, but what by the time they get to you, you realize they don't. Or maybe things have changed, or you just realize like you were in a different place then, and that's okay. You don't have to say yes to everything that you once thought was for you, but you need to know how to decide that in the first place. Now, you could use your logical mind, sure. You could always say, follow your heart, follow your gut, right? That's what everybody says. But that only applies to some people. And your authority is going to help you understand what process to follow and what applies to your particular energy type. So let's dive in. About 50% of people actually have the emotional authority type. Now, this can apply to everybody except for reflectors. And I know a lot of people of all different types that are emotional authority. And here's what's really important when you have this authority type: you need to wait for clarity before you take action. Every time, as an emotional authority type myself, I have taken action based on an in the moment feeling, right? Following exclusively my sacral, which is the other option for generator types, by the way. I almost always regret it. Rarely, unless I am looking logically at my emotional patterns, where that I'm still in a way getting emotional clarity, I I always regret it. I'm always like, oh, okay, so if this resonates, some people find that they'll make plans in the moment when they're super stoked, and then down the road be like, I am not stoked anymore. I really regret that. That's because they didn't wait for clarity, right? And even if this doesn't resonate with you, I'm sure that can help you understand the concept. Now, when it comes to emotional authority, how do you know when you have clarity? Well, you got to ride the emotional wave. And when you have clarity on something, it'll just click and it'll just make sense suddenly and be like, that's the thing. All right, I feel very like there is no part of me that's disconnected from this decision. And based on your chart type, some people take longer, some people take shorter. You'll find this when you look at your chart, there'll be a part that says definition. If you have single definition, it might take shorter for you, depending on the decision and how many emotional aspects are involved. If you have anything beyond that, the bigger it goes, up to triple or quad, it's going to take longer because more parts of you have to integrate and agree. I just have one section. Everything else agrees, right? It all agrees at once. Whereas, like my kids, for example, are triple splits. So they have these three different sections of energy centers on their chart that are separated. And all of them have to agree to reach emotional clarity. So, sometimes it might be as long as a reflector, but it's worth it because it's the path of least resistance. If you make a choice out of alignment without following your emotional authority, it's going to create more friction, which is going to create more obstacles. And if you don't believe me, just start watching this in your world. Experiment with it, play with it. It's the great experiment. So the sacral is specific to generators and manifesting generator types only. That's because they're the only types that have an active, defined sacral center. That's it. So that is the most active energy center, motor center there. As far as that is where the energy that we all use is created. So unless you have the emotional overlay of the emotional authority that we just went over, you have a gut yes, gut no as a generator type. And so what that means is you don't need to understand how, you don't need to understand why, but you do need to learn to tune into your gut yes, gut no. This can be a process when it comes to deconditioning, because sometimes we have conditioned gut responses. But when people say follow your gut, this is what this means. This only applies to 50% of generator types. But when it applies, man, just run with it. The splenic authority is this intuitive in the moment voice. It's that little, like the devil versus angel on your shoulder. It's that, right? It's this intuitive knowing and understanding about what to do. This type of authority only happens with projectors and manifestor types. And it can be tricky to see if it's fear based or if it's an actual problem. But when it comes to the splenic authority, it doesn't really matter because what it's here to do is keep you safe, right? And so if you need to unwind fears, that's something to think about. But this is the deep subconscious voice that is guiding you and keeping you safe. Well, a lunar strategy is more about making sure you give yourself enough pause and enough engagement with the right people in your outer world. The lunar authority is about the sitting in the gap and making sure you give yourself plenty of time being in that moment to decide what actually works for you. You may find it's easier to actually work with a lunar calendar so that you can track and journal because it's a slow, intuitive process that follows the lunar cycles. And you may prefer for some major on the face of the moon. Or maybe you're just doing it to make sure that it's a full lunar cycle. It's up to you. But this is sitting in that gap and making sure that you're not so conditioned by other people that you're not making your own decision. It's about taking that conditioning, seeing what serves you and what to hold on to, and again, what to release. Self projected authority is one of two authority types that are around speaking out loud. Now, what makes self projected authority different from the other one is that it's all about needing to just say it to somebody and see how it echoes back to you. Not necessarily by their advice or response. You aren't going to at all be affected by that or conditioned by that. But you need to speak it out into the void to be digested. And only when it's digested by somebody else's aura are you really sure what to do with it. Now, this one, it doesn't really matter who you're saying it to. Sometimes, honestly, like a voice memo will do it too. It really depends on, and typing can too, sometimes for minor things. It depends on the intensity of the decision that needs to be made. But ultimately, it's all about you and how you decide things. You're just using the people around you as a way to process. This is a projector. Projectors are, again, they're here to complement and improve the processes of generators. They're equally as important, right? And generators without projectors are just kind of rise and grind, right? Maybe not rise and grind hustle culture exactly, but sort of, right? Projectors sometimes, but they also, it's not an empty one-sided dynamic, right? Projectors also get their cup filled by generators. And as a self-projected authority type, that kind of projector needs a generator to bounce ideas off of or another projector friend. That works as well too. Mental or sounding board or no authority, there's a few different names for this type. This is another projector exclusive one. Now, similar to the self projected authority type we just talked about in the last one, this is one where you need to talk it out with people. But the difference here is this one's a little more sensitive because the people that you talk it out to matter because what they say actually impacts you and your decision. You are conditioned by their responses. So, with this one, it's really important to be really careful about who you have on your sounding board because they are going to, like the 5 people that are closest to you, those are the 5 people that you kind of become. This is extra true for a mental sounding board authority. As a projector, again, right? It's all about partnership, it's all about the one on one dynamic. 2 people making a third thing, right? 1 + 1 is 3. That's it. So, with these projector specific authority types, the symbiotic relationship is really important. And so making sure, again, that you are around the right people because they become part of you. This one, the most important. Otherwise, honestly, you're going to end up following their agenda and it's not going to be at all of service to you. There's a lot of surrender and trust involved in being a projector. And unfortunately, it's obviously not a choice, right? How you're born. You're here to just learn how to maximize the energy you have. And despite what a lot of people say, it's more than okay to be somebody that needs other people. You can be independent and still prefer to like you thrive more with other people and sharing aura. There's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't make it codependent. But be careful that it doesn't.